On the 21st of April 2001, a 14-year-old teenager by the name of Hannah Williams left her home where she and her mother lived at Elgar Close, Deptford, southeast London. Hannah disappeared after telling her mother that she was going window shopping in Dartford, where she was well liked and known to market stall traders as the girl who loved fashion. Unfortunately, Hannah's life had been difficult growing up. She was known to have a learning disability and was called immature for her age. With this, life posed challenges for her, especially growing up in 90s Britain. When she was 4, she had been sexually abused by a boyfriend of her mother's and had spent some time in care. In that time, she had started running away from where she was residing. For that reason, for a long time it was presumed that Hannah had run away, due to her previously going missing in the past, but that unfortunately couldn't be as far from the truth. In March 2002, almost a year after Hannah went missing, her body was found by a workman who was clearing part of a disused cement works in Northfleet to prepare ground for the new Channel Tunnel rail link. All that remained of Hannah was her skull and her heavily decomposed body wrapped in a blue tarpaulin. Around her neck was a 12-meter blue rope coiled around several times. Police found Hannah's underwear close to her badly decomposed remains, cut into 3 pieces. The gusset was completely missing, having also been cut out using scissors. It was clear to police that Hannah had been sexually assaulted while still alive. It took a week for DNA evidence to prove that the body was that of missing teenager Hannah Williams. Luckily, Hannah's sense of style had led to her early identification due to the clothing's unique appearance. According to The Guardian, Hannah was found wearing a black sleeveless top with a pattern of gold leaves across the front, with a denim jacket, burgundy trousers, and leather boots. Just 2 months later, on May 17, 2002, a man named Robert Howard was arrested, and 2 days later appeared before Medway magistrates in Kent, charged with Hannah's murder. This is where the story gets a bit twisted. Robert Howard was another one of those sick individuals who was allowed to roam free in the United Kingdom, even though his criminal record was littered with sexual offences dating back to the mid-60s. After reading his long list of charges, it's hard to imagine how this monster was ever allowed out of prison after his first incarceration. I'm going to read through the timeline of Robert Howard leading up to Hannah. Please be aware that this may be triggering to some. Robert Howard's timeline. He committed his first sexual offence in 1964 when he attempted to rape a 6-year-old girl in London. He broke into the child's bedroom pretending to be a doctor and ordered her to undress. Howard failed to have sex with her, but performed a foul sex act injuring the girl. He was captured by police after returning to the house a week later. Sentenced just before his 21st birthday, he served only 9 days in Borstal for the crime. 5 years later, he broke into a house in northeast England and tried to rape a young woman. She escaped his clutches and ran into the back garden, but was chased and knocked to the ground by Howard, who then tried to strangle her. He fled when neighbours were alerted by her screams. He was sentenced to 6 years in jail for the attempted rape and aggravated burglary. In March 1974, Howard was jailed for 10 years after being convicted in Cork of raping a 58-year-old woman. The victim was asleep in bed when Howard broke in, gagged and bound her with a sheet and then subjected her to a 5-hour ordeal of sexual assaults and forced her to hand over money. He then married in 1983, but the relationship only lasted 3 years. In 1988, he was sentenced to 15 months in Mountjoy Prison for theft offences in Dublin. On his release in 1990, he moved to Northern Ireland and spent some time at an alcoholism rehabilitation unit in Newry, County Down, before going on to Derry. A year later, Howard arrived at Castlederg, County Tyrone, moving into a flat on the town's main street. He lured a 16-year-old girl to the flat in 1993. She alleged that during a 2-day nightmare, Howard drugged, stripped, and repeatedly raped her while a noose was tied around her neck. Every time she refused, he tightened the rope around her neck and threatened to kill her unless she followed his orders. His victim only managed to escape by breaking out through an upstairs window. Howard then claimed the teenager consented and was later convicted of the lesser charge of having unlawful sex with a girl under the age of 17. He was given a 5-year sentence in February 1995, which was suspended for 5 years. On August 13, 1994, while still charged with rape, Howard drove Arlene Arkinson to the seaside town of Bundoran, County Donegal, for drinks with his girlfriend's daughter and her boyfriend. At around 2:30 a.m. the next morning, he dropped the couple off at the boyfriend's house outside Castlederg. He drove off with Arlene and was the last person to see her alive. The 15-year-old's body has never been found. Howard was arrested and questioned about Arlene's disappearance in September of that year, but was never charged. He was hounded out of Castlederg and moved to County Donegal, where he lived rough, sleeping in a van. He then spent some time in Cookstown, County Tyrone. At an undisclosed time around this period of his life, Howard also held a woman in her 20s captive for several weeks. His attacks resulted in her becoming pregnant, and she gave birth to his only known child. In March 1995, Howard relocated to Scotland and was given a council home, just yards from two schools, after reportedly convincing officials he was a terrorist target. But he was hounded out of the Drumchapel area of Glasgow after his past was exposed by a newspaper. Howard moved to London the following year, then began living with a woman in Northfleet, Kent, who was later to unwittingly introduce him to 14-year-old Hannah Williams. Hannah went missing on April 21, 2001. On March 11, 2002, Detective Chief Superintendent Norman Baxter reopened the Arlene Arkinson murder case with Howard as his chief suspect. Just 4 days later, Hannah's body was found at a disused cement works in Northfleet, Kent. On May 17, 2002, Howard was arrested and 2 days later appeared before Medway magistrates in Kent charged with Hannah's murder. He was then re-arrested and charged with the murder of Arlene Arkinson on May 22, 2002. In October 2003, Howard was jailed for life at Maidstone Crown Court for the murder of Hannah Williams. Howard died in prison custody in England in 2015 while serving a life sentence for the rape and murder of 14-year-old Hannah Williams. Court proceedings. The Maidstone jury heard how Howard had targeted Hannah, a teenager with learning difficulties, and exploited her vulnerability after meeting the schoolgirl who had been a friend of his then-partner Mary Scollin. Video evidence also revealed how Hannah had played at the couple's home in Moddington in the months before she disappeared. However, it is not thought that Howard abused the teenager until April 21, 2001, when she was last seen at the Dartford market. It is believed Howard called the teenager on her mobile phone before kidnapping her. Wendy Joseph QC, who prosecuted in the Maidstone trial, told the court, "After that phone call, nothing is really known about Hannah. There is nobody who can say she had been seen. For some point that morning, Hannah simply disappeared." Her mum waited and waited for any sign of Hannah, and from time to time tried ringing her phone. They were unable to make any contact with her at all. In fact, after that call just before 11 AM, Hannah never used her phone again. Hannah's family spent almost 12 months worrying about her whereabouts before her body was found in Northfleet in March 2002. Miss Joseph told the court nobody really knew what happened to Hannah for a year, nearly a year. It wasn't until then that it became clear that she had been murdered. Despite the fact that police were hampered by the heavily decomposed state of Hannah's body, the jury heard powerful circumstantial evidence linking Howard to the killing. Similar blue tarpaulin used to cover her body was linked to Howard. He had a good knowledge of the Northfleet area, and there was strong evidence that he had made the last call to Hannah. Miss Joseph QC also told the jury, "When you have enough circumstantial evidence, it can be the most powerful evidence of all. There are enough little bits to show that he did it, enough to paint a picture so that you are sure that he has killed Hannah." However, crucial to the Crown's case was also similar fact evidence brought before the jury about Howard's past, including allegations that he had murdered County Tyrone teenager Arlene Arkinson and raped a 16-year-old girl. This was an extremely harrowing case, and my condolences go out to her family and everyone else this monster affected. Time and time again we see a failure of duty by the Crown Prosecution Service with sex offences. I do believe that laws need to be changed around sex crimes and way harsher sentences given. It's hard to imagine that this man was even able to walk the streets after just one of his crimes, but unfortunately, here we are. Robert Howard was a truly disgusting monster. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then please leave a thumbs up, and if you feel so inclined, give me a subscribe. Much love everyone, and keep safe out there. The world is a beautiful place, but also a dangerous place. Stay safe.